Down said, huh? It's a football podcast with Tom, Cody, and Sam.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Midwest Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host for today, Cody Holla, with my two co-hosts, Tom Rumba and Sam Betlin. How you guys doing today?
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm doing well over here all the way in Minnetonka.
Yeah, Sam's actually away from us right now due to a possible COVID concern.
Yeah, our podcast gets dangerous. It happens.
Yeah, so we're playing it safe, just like all the experts say, and hopefully Sam can be here next week with us. But we still do have him on Zoom, so you guys still get to see his pretty face. So I just want to run through the itinerary really quick of what we're going to be doing today. So we're going to be going over our Week 6 fantasy football headlines. And then we're going to be moving on to, the trades. There were a bunch of trades this week, and we really want to analyze them and break them down for you, just so you guys kind of get a good outlook of what happened. After that, we'll dive into the scores and matchups, including our matchup of the week, which was Sam versus Jake O'Brien. Then we'll come to our segment of Who's Still Standing, which is just a segment covering the current position of standings. Matt Magnuson did a great analysis on our standings that we're going to dive into. We'll finish that up with our power rankings, which we've had a little bit of movement now, since we haven't looked at it for a week, and this was a pretty big week that just happened. And then we'll look into our next week previews. So why don't we just start off with the headlines? Guys, is there any big things you guys want to lay out?
I guess for me, we've probably touched on it 1,000 times at this point, but rookie receivers just continue to ball out, whether it be Claypool, Lamb, or Jefferson. They have all played so well this season.
That's 100% true. And actually, on that same note, I had a similar sentiment that it's the opposite for tight ends. Like, the tight end landscape is just barren. There's a few of the top guys. Like, Kittle is like in a tier of his own this year, even over Kelsey, in my opinion, when he actually plays. And then obviously it's Kelsey and Waller. But after that, there's just so many guys that are in just the same tier, even more than normal years. So that's pretty crazy to watch for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Do you guys think those kind of go hand in hand? Like the fact that there's so many good wide receivers right now is resulting in less tight end production?
It's possible.
Yeah, it's also a good question.
It is. I think it's also just more likely that there are random fluctuations year to year with tight end value and teams just having different schemes. And I think it's hard to predict it year to year. I'd be more interested to see if next year that happens. But
Yep. See if some of these young tight ends can develop a little bit too, like Jonnu Smith or Gesicki or obviously Hawk and Fant as well.
Yeah, for sure. And especially with Noah Fant out, it does make sense that maybe if he comes back, he can be thrown into that tier. All right, so let's keep moving forward, and let's actually move into our trade section that we have for you today. There were 5 trades made, which is nuts. So we're going to start up top here with our first trade of the week, which is Mike Reed and Jake O'Brien. Now, in this trade, Mike Reed traded the 2020 second-round pick, which belonged to Trujillo, and the 2022 second-round pick that belonged to Mike himself. In exchange, Mike gets Le'Veon Bell from Jake O'Brien. So the first thing here that you can see also on our screen is who we think won. So I want to get into you, Tom. Explain why you think Jake won this trade.
Jake won the trade because I would much rather have 22, or it doesn't matter what year it is. I'd rather have 2 seconds than Le'Veon Bell at the moment, especially for Jake's team, who is super deep already with running backs. And we had addressed that in previous podcasts. And now he has 2 future picks, which he can either decide to keep and keep his depth and really keep the idea of building a dynasty that wins a lot over many years instead of just trying to go for all in one year. Or he can flip those 2 seconds and try to make a trade for a bigger player to be more of a competitive team in the playoffs.
Gotcha. Let's move over to you, Sam.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with everything that you said, Tom. Value-wise, I would rather have the 2 seconds than Le'Veon Bell. And Jake's team just doesn't necessarily need him, especially now the fact that he's on Kansas City. Honestly, I think he's old and a little bit washed up, honestly.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I had Mike Reed winning just because I really liked Le'Veon Bell, and I was always wondering if he was going to still have that top tier production out of it. And just the fact that I was discounting the fact, that they're 2022 picks, so they are a little bit further down the road versus say like next year. That's still a little bit of time awaiting, but I get your guys' point. So then I guess I don't really need to ask the second question because it sounds like you guys are pretty unanimous on this of did Jake trade Le'Veon too soon though? But it makes it sound like you guys think he got good value. So you think he traded him at the perfect time?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess even at the time, I probably wouldn't have given up this much value if I was Mike. But yeah, anytime you can get that for an older running back, that probably won't even be good this year. I think that's really good for him.
I I think this is going to come across as a hot take, but I don't know if it actually is. I think before he signed with KC, he had more value. And I think initially when I saw him sign with KC, my first reaction was, holy shit, anyone that goes to Kansas City has Andy Reid and he's a prolific coach. But every day since then, I've thought about it and I think, man, Clyde is still there. CEH is RB1 on that team. And I think all Le'Veon Bell is going to do for that offense is be the goal line back because they don't want to keep just running CEH into the ground, especially into the end zone. And he's going to get some catches here or there. So I think he's going to be like good for 6 targets a game, probably 10 rushes and like 0.8 touchdowns.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the team kind of works together just because they do use 3 running backs right now. So, I mean, I think they'll kick out Daryl Williams and they'll kick out Darwin Thompson and give all those carries to Le'Veon. I can truly see this being a 50-50 split and being able to support those running backs in this offense, but that's just me. So let's actually move on to the second trade right now, which also involves Jake O'Brien. In this trade, Jake O'Brien traded away James White, running back for the New England Patriots, and also Curtis Samuel, wide receiver of the Carolina Panthers. In exchange, Matt Trujillo traded away Tyler Higbee, tight end on the Los Angeles Rams, a 2021 third-round pick, which belongs to Sam, and a 2022 third-round pick that belongs to Trujillo himself at the time. So I actually want to start this one off with Sam, who marked it down as a tie. Sam, do you want to kind of get into your logic a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, I kind of put it as a tie, just because I really do think it helps both teams. Trujillo with the injuries and the trade he made earlier this season certainly needed a running back, and James White kind of filled that role. I guess value-wise, I'd probably lean Jake, but I do think it helps both their teams.
Yeah, I said Jake and it's close. I think I'd rather, if I'm Jake and I'm receiving Tyler Higbee, I know we just talked about this a little bit before the show, and I know that he's technically one of 2 main tight ends on that team. And you could make the strong argument that Gerald Everett is the main tight end on that team, but it is just funny to note that Tyler Higbee is tight end number 8 in PPR right now. Not to mention that 2 third-round picks is not negligible. Whereas both James White and Curtis Samuel, I'm very meh on. Like James White is on a team with 3 other running backs. And one of them, Damian Harris, is actually really talented, in my opinion. So kind of outclasses James White. And Curtis Samuel is on a team with 2 better receivers than him. So yeah, I'd rather be Jake.
Yeah, I think my logic of why I chose Matt Trujillo essentially goes like this. I still think James White is a fantasy relevant backup running back to have on your team. Like he's definitely shouldn't be a free agent. So I think that provides value. I think Curtis Samuel is still a young asset that you could see where he goes because he definitely was a playmaker that I think he could also develop. Tyler Higbee's interesting. I don't really like him just because I think he's a second tight end. Looking at the 3rd-round picks, I mean, you have Sam's next year, which is effectively almost a 4th rounder at that point. And then the year after, you have Trujillo's his own, which assuming he still is a good team, he might also be a really low 3rd. So that's, I think, where my logic came from. But I can definitely see both sides. So if you actually looked at this trade about, I want to say like a year ago, year and a half ago, I think a lot of people would have said, wow, this isn't even close. that was because of Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel was ranked by a lot of analysts I was seeing to be a breakout player, especially before they had Robbie Anderson on that team. The question I have for you guys is it too late?
I'm going to take this one because Curtis Samuel lost value in two different ways. Number one, they are committing hardcore to Teddy Bridgewater. And although I love Teddy Bridgewater, and I think we identified last week that he has actually had an incredible season relative to what we thought, he still has a very low ceiling in my eyes as a passing quarterback. And the second reason he lost value was because of Robbie Anderson. He's been incredible in that offense, the number one wide receiver by far. And he still has DJ Moore waiting in his shadow. And he's an incredibly good receiver too. So unless Curtis Samuel gets traded at some point, I guess it's not too late. It could still happen, but his odds of that happening are low.
Yep, I totally agree. Even in addition to those players you referenced, they have a little guy called Christian McCaffrey that sometimes picks up some targets as well. So it's a pretty brutal situation, and he hasn't really played well.
Okay, there you go. The breakout will not be happening. With that being said,
you heard it here.
You heard it here first. Looking at the third trade here, there were a lot of common names kind of these last weeks that made the trades. So we see Mike Reed making his second trade of the week, and this one actually comes with Adam. Now, Adam had been looking to dump a quarterback for quite some time now and was finally able to get the package that he wanted. So Mike Reed ended up trading right after he got him the Le'Veon Bell and Kerryon Johnson, and he acquired Sam Darnold from Adam. So I want to start with Tom. I want to start with you on this one since you picked differently. Why do you think Adam won this trade?
I think Adam won the trade because even though in the long term, Sam Darnold has the most value of any of those players, I do think Adam is clearly trying to be a competitive team this year. And adding both depth in the running back position, but also a player in Le'Veon Bell, who is just, to me, he's got a very high floor. So he's going to put up production of at least 12 points a game, I would imagine. That might be on the high side, but regardless, he's someone he can plug in right away. And I don't have too much faith in Sam Darnold. There's a very high possibility that he ends up being a bust. So.
Yeah, I can definitely see that side of things, and it does give him good depth. To me, though, Le'Veon Bell and Kerryon Johnson just aren't going to do a whole lot for his team unless CEH actually does get injured. It's actually funny just because, I would like to hear, Cody, what do you value Sam Darnold at? Because I'm actually not a huge fan of Sam Darnold, Le'Veon Bell, or Kerryon, so I just think it's a low-value trade, but Darnold is the best player in this trade.
Yeah, so I think this will kind of lead me into our question here, which is, do we think Sam Darnold could actually ever develop into that high QB2 that, a lot of dynasty rankings even coming into the season we're putting him at? And my opinion still is yes. I think he's young enough to the point that he has shown enough promise that I think if he gets the right coach and the right offensive coordinator, instead of literally QB killer Adam Gase, I think he'll actually be able to develop into a number 15 dynasty quarterback asset.
Yeah, of course he could develop into that. And I think that it's very possible that he's heavily afflicted by both Adam Gase and his lack of any real wide receivers or tight ends. His wide receiver number one is Jamison Crowder, who, as much as I like him as a complimentary receiver, and he's a great possession receiver, he is not a wide receiver one on any team. And so, he could definitely develop into that high QB2. It's just the odds of that happening are so low. It's very uncommon for a player to either stay on the same team, aka, or I guess a la Alex Smith did something similar with the 49ers, and then he actually went to the Chiefs and was even better on the Chiefs. But I just don't see Sam Darnold doing that. And I know I just talked about Sam Darnold, that I liked him before the season, but man, he just looks lost. So I don't know.
Yep, I agree. There's always a chance that it could happen, but to me, look at what Robbie Anderson's doing in Carolina right now. Sam Darnold had Robbie Anderson, and they were both trash together. So could he? Anyone could at this point. Josh Rosen could, for all we know. But to me, the comparison is right now, the QB 15 in Dynasty is Baker Mayfield, and that's not even close to me. I would take Baker Mayfield every single time over Sam Darnold.
Not even necessarily because of Baker Mayfield's skill as a quarterback, but because they're committed to him and he's going to be the quarterback for the next X amount of years.
I think it's both, but yeah, I agree.
Yeah, interesting. I could see if Baker continues to struggle this year, Cleveland giving up on Baker. reasonably, but not after this year, but in the next coming years if he continues this. He's been bad, but
I don't think they're even.
I don't think he's been that bad personally.
No, he's been doing exactly what they need him to do. They want to be a run first offense, and he's just a quarterback that they're trying to train into not making mistakes so that they can leverage his gunslinger ability in the future. That's my take on it. It seems like they're trying to develop him as he plays.
sure.
So
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so let's look at our fourth trade that we have listed here, and that is between Matt Magnuson and Ben Fowler. Now, Matt Magnuson finally gets the tight end. You know, we'd been saying on the last, 3 podcasts, we're like, what's the kind of the weak spot of Matt Magnuson's team? It's his tight end. It's his tight end. Well, he tries to fill that hole a little bit here by getting Dalton Schultz, and he gives up Jerick McKinnon for it. So I actually want to start also with Sam here. Sam, you have this marked down as a tie too. Why is that?
Yeah, same logic as before. I really do think it helps both teams. Jerick McKinnon, I think he's actually has a lot of value while Mostert's out, who just got injured again. So I think he'll be a temporary starter, which is great. I mean, Schultz will probably add more value going forward. So I'd maybe lean Matt's side, but I do think it helps both teams.
see, that's my problem with it. Although I do agree that Jerick McKinnon has some temporary value, it's also limited, even temporarily, because they do have JaMychal Hasty, who actually looks decent. Not to mention that once Tevin Coleman comes back and Raheem Mostert comes back, I think Jerick McKinnon goes back to what he was before, which is nothing. Whereas Dalton Schultz is a young tight end on a team. So in dynasty value, I think he's taking over the job over who was the guy preseason before that got injured for the Cowboys, tight end.
Yeah,
Trivia
I know who you're
question.
talking about, but I'm blanking.
I don't know either.
He was supposed to be the guy on Dallas. And then he got injured, ACL tear, I think. And now it's Dalton Schultz.
Blake Jarwin, I think.
Oh, Blake
That's
Jarwin.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
So it was supposed to be a 2 tight end field. And then Dalton Schultz took over 100%. And I think that once Blake Jarwin was back next year and healthy, I think it's still going to be Dalton Schultz world. So I like Dalton Schultz as a TE1, low end TE1 in Dynasty, but also as a TE1 for sure for this year, even with Andy Dalton. So
Oh, sure. So even for Dynasty, you have him as a top 12 tight end.
low end for sure. He's 24 years old.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, still, you're comparing against people like Jonnu Smith and Mike Gesicki, who are 11 and 12 currently.
Yeah, that is true. Okay. I might be a little bit bullish on the tight end one, but
I get it though. I mean, I think he has played pretty well, so maybe he can continue.
Yeah, you'd have to see how his rapport with Dak goes, because Mike Gesicki isn't that far out of the realm of possibility to me between Dalton Schultz and him, but that's me.
so then just that he could be like the lowest tight end one, basically.
Yeah.
Sure.
Exactly. Or he could be right around number 13.
Yeah.
Yeah, seems pretty reasonable to me.
Yep, great for Matt's team though overall, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess speaking about Dalton Schultz, though, now that he doesn't actually have Dak Prescott, are you guys worried about him at all rest of the season going with Andy Dalton? Andy Dalton looked really bad.
I guess I'll take this one immediately. Yeah, so there's two little nuggets in that one. Number one is that actually with Andy Dalton on the field, Dalton Schultz got a ton of targets. So it seems like, Andy Dalton likes to throw the ball like 5 yards, whether it's to the right of him or right in front of him. And that's both Zeke Elliott, Tony Pollard on the right side, and then Dalton Schultz in the middle of the field. So I think Dalton Schultz will actually get a higher target share, be lower quality in those targets. But second off, I do think it might be a bit of an overreaction to say that Andy Dalton is a struggling quarterback. I know you just said he had one bad week, but I actually do think it's very possible it's just the jitters from his first start in however many weeks now. So I'd be expecting him to rebound.
Yeah, I think he'll bounce back too. Not overly worried, but I think Schultz will be better with Dak if he was in. So still a fine starter for Matt's team though.
Gotcha. All righty. So let's continue on the Ben Fowler trade, or trades, I should say. And let's go to the big trade of the week. So this one actually had Ben Fowler trading away injured Dak Prescott, DJ Chark, Cole Kmet, and Matt Breida to Mike Reed for Gardner Minshew and Kenny Golladay. And we all have Mike winning this trade. So I want to start with you, Sam. What is the big reason that Mike wins this trade?
Dak Prescott is just by far the best asset out of any of those players. For the record, I do get why Fowler did it, because he would be completely eliminated for playoffs if he didn't do something. And it was nice he had an upgraded wide receiver while he did it. But that being said, Dak Dak is probably worth about as much as Gardner and Kenny Galladay put together. So that's a big, big asset for him going forward.
Yeah, this is the quintessential example of I'm not going to call it a desperation trade, but it is actually a trade that is good for Fowler's team. It's kind of what you have to do if you're competitive and you have no other options on the market. But it does really just hurt from the has to lose Dak because of it. And even though I don't necessarily see Dak bouncing from it back 100% necessarily, I mean, DJ Chark and Kenny Galladay are closer in value than I think people think. I do have Kenny Galladay over him in my rankings that I publish never. But I also think that Cole Kmet is underrated. That's a great asset to acquire for Mike's team. And even though I think Matt Breida is nothing, that's three. Dak Prescott, DJ Chark, and Cole Kmet are three very rosterable players in exchange for. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry, I'll let you finish.
No, I didn't actually have. Go ahead, say it.
Oh, I was going to say you could say they are rosterable, but then one of those players was dropped immediately.
Yep. So that actually leads me into the bottom point here that I want to make before I guess we're going to kind of jump around was Mike Reed dropped Cole Kmet and then Sam picked him up for $1, kind of without anybody realizing it, and myself included. Why the hell did he drop him? Do you guys know why?
First of all, I realized it like immediately and I was like, what the fuck? And I almost picked him up, but I don't have the room on my bench. Second of all, this is just kind of what Mike does. So I'd love Mike to justify himself. Maybe if he listens, he can chime in on why he dropped Cole Kmet. If he was trading for him, why would you drop him immediately?
Yeah, I'm not complaining. Happy to take him.
I mean, where do you guys have him as far as your rankings for tight end? Is he close to that high TE2? Higher?
No, he's lower than that. He's lower than that.
Yeah, he's still a flyer. He's young though, so he's got a high ceiling, so he could be useful, but there's probably an equal chance that I drop him next year than there is if I start him. So yeah, it's not the end of the world, but he does add value, I think.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy when we look at, so at number 2 right here, I'm actually showing both of Ben Fowler's lineup on the left here before all the trades he made this week and after all the trades he made. And this is kind of the projected 2020 lineup that he has. So I didn't want to include Dak in there just so that way it didn't look just ridiculous. And then on the right here for Mike Reed, I actually wanted to throw in his projected 2021 lineups just because that's where Dak actually finally gets added and all your assets there. And it's interesting to kind of look on the Mike Reed asset side of his tight end starting is Hayden Hurst. So it kind of makes sense if you wanted Cole Kmet to be your flyer for him because Hayden Hurst doesn't have long-term value. At least I don't think so, but maybe I'm wrong there.
Nope, you're not wrong. That would have been a great asset for him to keep, which is I actually completely forgot. Like I remembered at the time, but I forgot that he dropped him. So it really just continues to not make sense to me that he wouldn't have kept him. Not to mention that there is a player on Mike Reed's bench at the moment. His name is Antonio Brown. The fact that he was not the one dropped in favor of Cole Kmet is just bonkers to me.
Yeah, reports are coming out he might actually get picked up though and start playing the next couple of weeks.
Do you think that a 32-year-old out of shape Antonio Brown is actually worth anything?
I mean, not worth as much as Cole Kmet, but like if he signs,
that's my point.
If he signs with the Seahawks, who are the front runner, I do think he has potential.
I think it also comes from the fact that I agree with that now, maybe, but at the time there weren't any reports when it happened. But yeah, so what I want to do is look at Ben Fowler's team for 2020, looking at the before and the after of this week's trades. And I guess the question is his lineup better? Go
ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I guess I didn't realize Trey Burton was his backup, so that's my bad. Yeah, that Schultz trade looks a lot worse now. He was the one that traded Schultz, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that one doesn't look very good. I didn't know he didn't have someone better than Trey Burton. I still think his team, his starters this year do look better because he's trading in Randall Cobb for Gardner Minshew is the big one. And then I do think Kenny Galladay is an upgrade over DJ Chark.
The question is whether Fowler's team is better. Yeah, I mean, I do think it is better because it's a huge upgrade from Minshew or from Cobb to Minshew. Like that's probably 10 points, which is just ridiculous. And from Chark to Galladay, it's I don't know, close to negligible, but like maybe 2 points. Downgrade from Trey Burton, and Dalton Schultz is probably like 3 points. So the biggest one is just the Gardner Minshew pickup, which, as Fowler being a competitive team, that's really important. I actually think that does vault him into continuing to be a competitive team. So,
yeah, I agree. I think it's kind of funny how you look at it, and it really is just like the Dak Prescott for Gardner Minshew side of it when you just kind of analyze everything. Obviously, Cole Kmet might have been nice to keep, especially with trading Dalton Schultz away, but I guess he's going to roll with Trey Burton. So then what I kind of really want to look at also is on the right side here is Mike Reed, and this is his projected 2021. Currently he's going to be about the number 11 team in our dynasty league. So it's, his rebuild looks like it gets a little bit expedited here. Are you guys excited about his team at all in 2021? Sam, let's start with you.
Oh, in 2021, no, not at all. I still think he has like 2 to 3-year rebuild going that he should try to compete in like 2023-ish. But yeah, I think he's taken huge steps this week, and his team looks a lot better going forward than it did previously.
Not only that, but both Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool, which if you would have told me that they would both have raised in value since week 0, I would have called you crazy, but they really both have. And so it does look his future wide receivers could be both of those guys plugged in, even if just one of them. And then he could pick up one in the draft in the future. The only guy that actually has a true arrow down is Daniel Jones, but I don't think that's surprising to most people, as well as Keyshawn Vaughn. He is not a startable dynasty running back, but
yeah, and a couple things to note is Daniel Jones is currently the number 20 quarterback on Fantasy Pros, and Sam Darnold, who we actually acquired from Adam, is number 21. So at least he kind of has a couple guys to choose from there and hope that one of them hits.
That's a huge note. So yes, his team does improve for the future for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree there. Another interesting thing that I didn't exactly note here was between Chase Claypool and Darius Slayton. They're actually like really close on dynasty rankings also.
That's wrong.
I probably agree with you. But then I would think Deontay Johnson and Darius Slayton are closer then.
It's tough to say, just because before Claypool had 4 touchdowns and lit the world on fire, Deontay Johnson was the wide receiver one of the future for the Steelers. All it took was...
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're cool. You're cool.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, that's true. But like Deontay Johnson's only played 1 game this year, so I'm not really convinced that those two can play in the same game together and both like be solid wide receiver 2s yet. Between Claypool and Johnson,
it's a good point. It's nice for him that one of them will assuredly, and I will sign my name on this, one of them will assuredly rise up and be the wide receiver 1 for the next couple of years. So,
yeah,
over Juju.
No. Yeah. Yes.
Oh,
God,
okay.
I should not be
That's
saying
a hot
this.
take.
This is intel. This is intel. I should not be talking. No. Juju's the best. No, there's no value. Juju's just on a slow start. It's gonna be okay. It's fine. That's fine.
Right.
Gosh, poor Juju.
What do you mean? He's wide receiver 1 on the team for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait in like the next couple days when all of a sudden we see Juju Smith-Schuster's on the trade block.
I never put players on the trade block.
Yeah, and that's why you don't trade. Anyway, so that kind of summarizes the trades of this week. Obviously, we're going to skip the pickups because this has been a pretty long section, and nobody even sent us a bad, trade request they got. So trade tirade is off the board. So moving in now, I'm just going to quickly go over, the scores of the week. We're not going to analyze them too much just because I know we talk about, all your guys' teams way too much. We're sick of talking about all your guys' teams, all the scores. So we're just going to go over it. So let's look back at week 5 here. And the first matchup that I'm just going to go through really quick is just because of, me looking at it on my sleeper was between me and Eric Barber. And Eric Barber ended up beating me 130 to 90, which is to be expected. I moved to 0-6. Barber moves to 3-3. The next matchup here was between Laramie and Adam. Adam gets a pretty divisive win right here, moving to 4-2 with a score of 155 over Laramie, who now falls to a 2-4 record, scoring 143 points. We'll come back to this game as that'll be our matchup of the week that we'll analyze. Here, Tom, you get the win, scoring about 147 and Marcus gets the loss, scoring 134. Tom, you moved to 3-3, and Marcus moves to 2-4. So a nice little winning streak for Tom lately, though, kind of coming back from the lackluster start, I would say. Moving down here, you can see Matt Magnuson scoring 166 points with a 3-3 record now, beating out Mike Reed at 118, kind of cementing himself as the second worst team in the league with a record of 1-5. And then lastly, but not least, we have Ben Fowler beating up on Matt Trujillo, beating him by a score of 178 to 108, really kind of actually demolishing him and breaking, away from the projections. But Matt still does retain the 4-2 record, and then Fowler also gets the 4-2 record. Now let's actually move into the matchup of the week that we have right here, and that is between Sam and Jake. And the reason I really wanted to look into this matchup is because this is a possible playoff preview. Going into this week, you guys were both within the top 4 teams, I would say. So, Sam, you get a huge win here, scoring 198 points, and Jake scoring just a measly 138, kind of.
Yeah, get fucked, Jake.
Yeah.
Measly 138.
Yeah.
Pussy.
So the first question I actually want to ask you, and I'll start with you, Sam, since it's your team, is do you go undefeated this year? Is it all but set?
It's not all but set, but at this point, I would guess so. Jake was kind of the big one that I was worried about getting past with all my bye weeks. And then obviously I have Tom week 12, who's, I think, the major threat to upsetting that. But
Tom, what do you think?
Yeah, I think he'll go undefeated, even though I don't think he deserves it. Karma's a bitch, but
it's not about deserving it.
I want you to prove it. Yeah. I think since we're in the same division, I think we should do a fisticuffs, like good old middle school style.
Oh, okay. I'm down.
To settle it.
Yeah, because you guys are so close that a fist fight needs to be decided.
Yeah. Don't worry. I'll go undefeated until playoffs. Probably play Tom the first week and then lose. So it'll all work itself out.
Yeah. Preach, brother.
Yeah.
Oh God, that would just be poetic justice for all your fantasy football past seasons.
Yeah, it's fine. I'd have next year.
The only other question I had here is Jake O'Brien has actually scored under 140 points the last 2 weeks. Are you guys worried about his team?
Dude, I've been worried about his team since week 2, and you guys were trying to, again, I hate being that victory lap, pat on the back, but like week 2, I was like, I'm worried about Jake's team. You guys agree, and you're like, no, it's still Jake's team. Hey, he's got a lot of good players. Hey, see? And no, and it's like every week we're asking, like, are we worried about Jake's team? Yeah, we're fucking worried about Jake's team. It's not that good anymore. Boom.
Sam, rebuttal?
I'm not that worried. I think especially this week, he had a super down week. His quarterbacks got less than 10 put together. I don't think that's going to happen every week at all.
Yep.
Other than that, he didn't have too many outliers. So I don't know. Is he like an elite team? No, but I think he'll probably still up averaging like 150, 160.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like relative, he was supposed to be like a 165, 170 team going into the year, and he's had so many crucial players with arrows down this year that have lost value that I don't think he's in that tier anymore. Like I mean, obviously we have power rankings coming up, but I don't think his team is not like the team we once revered.
I guess how do you revere it? I had him out like 4th or 5th coming into the season. So like I never had him top 3, other than the fact that he could win his division.
Didn't you make the bet having him win the division?
Yeah. So, and I would still make that bet.
Oh, you would? Yeah. See, that's where I continue to go on my tirade. Like, I think Adam's team is just better and more consistent. Like, I don't believe in the AJ Green breakout. I still think that James Conner's lost a small amount of value. I do like Myles Gaskin as a pickup for him, but I don't think Terry McLaurin has a quarterback. Will Fuller, we'll see if he can keep up the production with Bill O'Brien gone. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It's interesting that the teams we bet on are tied right now. I guess Adam's technically winning, but he does play me this week. So that would need to be a pretty big upset, obviously.
Absolutely. I think that's a perfect transition into analyzing, the who's standing here right now, to just try to see where we're all standing in the standings. So let's actually start with Division 3 here, where we actually do see Adam, Ben, and Jake all tied with a 4-2 record. Adam just coming out slightly ahead over Fowler, winning the tiebreaker for points for currently. So we talked about it briefly. So who wins the division? Is it Sam? You still think it's Jake?
I still think it's Jake. I think Adam's team probably is about as good, but Fowler and Jake have both played me, and I play Adam this week.
And then Tom, you're convinced it's Adam?
It's tough. A lot has changed with all the trades here. So Adam's team actually loses about 5 points a game from Le'Veon Bell getting traded to Kansas City just because he was starting Clyde Edwards regularly. I think the interesting thing for Adam to note here is DeAndre Swift has a huge potential for Adam's team to be a startable asset, especially in that flex slot where he's currently got him popped back in there. And he's only projected 10 points this week, but he could be a guy that maybe becomes like a 14-point-a-week guy, just like at Clyde Edwards-Helaire is. So I just believe in Adam's potential more, and all of his players are like rising in value. I don't think any of them are going to go down. Whereas Fowler's team, he just had a big breakout week from Kenyon Drake. So answering some of the questions about him, but he also just acquired a quarterback, a very valuable quarterback for him to start now. So, I don't know. I don't know what to think. All I know for sure is that I put OB 3 out of those 3. So
all right, yeah, that's fair. I think we can all probably agree that this division is going to come down to those last 3 games where they all play each other.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is the first week I switched my mind. I do have Adam winning based on what we'll see, especially once we get to power rankings. I think the ascension of DeAndre Swift to me is enough to kind of unbalance it, along with the coupling of downgrades for Jake. Like Jake loses Le'Veon Bell. That actually, to me, is a sizable loss this year to just have him no longer on his team. Also, I think it's just the fact that what's going to be the extent of Melvin Gordon? I mean, with the DUI this last week and maybe like being withheld, especially if things get into legal troubles there.
It's just another player. I'm telling you, just go up and down Jake O'Brien's team. They all have questions. And Adam's team is the opposite. You look up and down his team, they're like, oh, he could be even more value. Oh, he could be even more value. Like,
yeah, and that's true. But at a certain point, it doesn't matter when you're literally like 4 starters deep on your bench, whereas Adam doesn't have that. I would say Adam's more questionable players in his starting lineup. Yeah, I wouldn't start AJ Green probably, but like on his bench, who does he have right now? T.Y. Hilton has been playing that good. Deshaun Jackson should be coming back. Jarvis Landry, Edelman are both fine.
Yeah,
I would.
It is. It's a very interesting discussion, but I would be willing to double down on the dollar bet just by saying I would dollar bet that Jake O'Brien will not win the division. That's not what the old one was.
Yeah, that's more. This one's more in your favor.
Well, yeah. So will you take it?
I think he's trying to double down.
That's halving down on you. Doubling down would you say Adam will win the division.
Yeah, I don't want to.
And you can give him the field.
The reality is I haven't made up my mind. The reality is I haven't made up my mind because I love Fowler's team now. Actually, like Kenyon Drake was my big question mark, and I'm not saying that he like completely erased all my questions about him, but him having a huge week, and I get that a lot of that was 60-yard touchdown with 2 minutes left. But
it's actually funny because Fowler to me is the worst of the 3. Even after all these trades, I still have him down there. He doesn't have a tight end. I mean, his quarterbacks are still just Teddy and Gardner Minshew, which I get that they've been okay this year, but like I don't trust them at all. And I think he doesn't have any depth. Whereas like I would take both of the starting lineups on either Adams or Jake's team over his team for sure.
Yep, I agree.
I think Jerick McKinnon's value is underrated on Fowler's team too.
Weren't you just knocking Jerick McKinnon?
Yeah.
Oh shit, that's not okay. It's funny. I'm glad you clarified that. I thought that was J.D. McKissick. In my head, that said J.D. McKissick.
I think he has both.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he has both.
You think J.D. McKissick is better than Jerick McKinnon?
No. Well, yes, I actually do. Yeah, that's a hot take. He doesn't have J.D. McKissick, by the way.
What about Antonio Gibson?
Yeah, he does.
Is he starting Fowler, right? Oh, is that way? Okay, there it is. Why is he a wide receiver? That's why I'm confused.
It's questionable.
Yeah. So I did mean to say J.D. McKissick, and I do think that he has sneaky startable value, actually.
Is he actually a receiver?
No. When he was on the lines, he was a running back. I don't know why he's listed as receiver.
Yeah, but
is he lining up as a wide receiver a lot? I mean, he's not getting that many carries.
Yeah,
and he's like getting plenty of receptions.
Targets.
Yeah, which is why I guess, so to return to what I was saying, whether he's a wide receiver or not, he actually does have sneaky good startable value this year. as a PPR like basic receiver. No, he's not lining up as a receiver, from my understanding.
That's weird. I wonder why that happened.
Yeah, that's a good
I'm
point.
still down on Jerick McKinnon.
He's had a good year.
Probably also fair, I guess.
He has.
But yeah, so I think this kind of embodies this division. Is it's very unsure, and again, we're just gonna have to see how everything plays out with it. And if you're Mike Reed, start that rebuild. You have 3 teams in your division trying to compete now. You have to imagine I know Adam's just kind of on the up and up right now, but you have to imagine in like 2 years, the only competition is Mike Reed and Adam, right?
Yeah. I completely agree with that.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. With that being said, I actually want to move up to division number 2 right now, where we can see Sam is, kind of solely ahead in this division. He's leading it 6-0 currently. Tom, you're tied with Barber at 3-3, but you've scored almost 130 points more. So you got a very big lead on him there. And then you have Laramie kind of rounding it out at 2-4, scoring 902 points there. My question for you two is, we already know Sam's going to make playoffs. There's a very high chance because of your points for Tom's going to make playoffs. Is there any chance Barber or Laramie can sneak into playoffs? Tom, let's start with you.
Not really. I mean, if we look at I guess we will look at this later on. Division 3 is going to have potentially 3, almost assuredly 2 playoff contenders. And then Division 1 is going to have almost assuredly 2 playoff contenders. And Division 2 is going to have 2 playoff contenders of me and Sam. So the chances that Eric or Laramie sneak in would have to be from ridiculous points scored or somehow pulling out a record that's super good after having to beat both Sam and Tom's team. So, no.
Yeah, I don't think there's a chance Barber makes playoffs. Laramie, if Sanders wasn't injured, I'd say he has a chance, but I do think that impacts him enough that not really. I mean, looking at points right now, he's only down like 40 or 50 from playoff contention, which can honestly be made up in 1 week. So he's not that far out of it, but I think that Sanders injury is honestly brutal. So,
yeah, I agree with that. I think they're kind of unfortunately just on the outside looking in, and they're going to be right on that cusp where they just quite didn't get in.
So can I ask, does Sanders' injury actually give me a chance at maybe trading with Laramie?
No.
What are you trading for?
This is a shout out to Laramie. My God, you value Mixon, Montgomery, and Sanders as running back 1, 2, and 3 in Dynasty. It's unbelievable. Maybe if Sanders is injured, maybe he's now RB4. Like, Jesus Christ.
He knows what he likes.
I guess.
He's high on them. You gotta keep your guys.
He's high on him. He rolls him up in a goddamn blunt and smokes him.
Yeah, that's pretty high.
Yeah, super high.
Okay.
I'm not triggered.
Yeah. And riding high in this division is Sam right now at 6-0. So we'll leave it at that. Moving on to division number 1 right here. We actually have Matt Trujillo in the lead, 4-2 record. Next is Matt Magnuson at 3-3, Marcus at 2-4, and me easily in last place. I think the question I had right here is, going into, I want to say even a couple weeks ago, we were just like, Matt Trujillo, number 2 seed. It's looking like it's going to be pretty locked up. He's almost undefeated right here. A couple of losses like this, including a 107 performance, and Matt Magnuson is on the rise because of Justin Jefferson. What would you guys put at the percent chance that Matt Magnuson can take the division?
5, maybe 10.
Yeah. Wow. You went even lower. I was going to say 20. So, yeah.
To me, it's probably about a 20% chance that he works his way up to tying Trujillo, but Trujillo's tiebreaker over him based on division record, which I think is going to be tough to beat. So
it's both record and points. I mean, the 100 points that's ridiculous. What is that, like averaging 16 points essentially? And it's even more than 100 points. Like Matt would basically have to average 20 points more than Trujillo a week, which I don't see happening. Even with Trujillo's depth, like having to start James White and Jamal Williams is not that bad of a deal after losing 2 key players in Chubb and Eckler. So I don't know. I really like Trujillo's team, and I think that's the most uninteresting division because it's just 1, 2, 3, 4 clear.
Yeah, I think you have easily. I actually think both Trujillo and Magnuson will probably make playoffs.
Mhm.
I think that's fair from my perspective. It's pretty easy to see me and Marcus won't, and that's not really a surprise to anybody. I think Marcus is kind of rebuilding too. Like he actually has good assets. He just needs to wait. So I think that kind of wraps up these divisions. What I want to turn over to now is something that Matt Magnuson actually made, which will maybe assist us in some of our predictions. So I'm going to move over to that screen right now. And what this is showing is, the current divisional placements for everybody. And also comments on where everybody would be in the current playoff system. So you can see right here, Sam, you're currently in the first seed. Then Trujillo is actually in the second seed with a 4-2 record. He has more points than Adam, which is the reason why he's there. Adam leading Division 3 right now with most points in the division. Then we move to Fowler, who is at second most points in Division 3. And he just has the best record, which is why he's above Tom there, even though he has less points. Tom gets the first spot for most points for. That isn't one of these 4 teams. He has 981 points and a 3-3 record at the number 5 seed. And then rounding it out is Matt himself with a 3-3 record and 933 points scored. And this is kind of where we were talking about Laramie kind of outside looking in. Number 7 right here, 902. So he's only about 30 points behind Matt. And then Jake O'Brien, obviously, if there's just a loss between Fowler or Adam, he moves right up, he moves right up in there, barring any, say, like, I guess if he wins and they lose, even if you guys win, I guess he wouldn't have tiebreaker on Tom's. Anyways, he would move in somewhere between this 3 to 6 range, right? This would be the projected draft as a result of it. I'm going to kind of ignore that right now just because it goes off current standings, and I don't really think that's going to be how it's, going to end, especially with the top 6 teams right here. That all depends on how you finish in playoffs. What he did was really cool here is I don't know exactly how we analyze this. Maybe, Sam, you can kind of give me a little bit of background, but I'm assuming maybe he looked at what the projections were in order to decide who was a heavy favorite or heavy dog. Or maybe he just or did he come up with this himself? Do you know?
A little bit of both. I mean, projections aren't going to be totally accurate based on bye weeks and people not putting in players 5 weeks from now. But that being said, yeah, he did look through and basically did it based on projections, his feelings, and the bye weeks that teams have.
Okay. So I actually want to look through, some of the rows here. So this seems pretty easy. Is when we were talking about Sam first up here is he going to go undefeated? Looking at strength of schedule and everything you have, it looks like yes. Your biggest threat, like you said, is going to be Tom in week 13. So we'll have to see there how that kind of all wraps up. I'm a little bit surprised looking at some of these sections where, Matt looks at himself here against Trujillo, and he actually has them as a push. I'd be interested to know why that is, because I strictly think Trujillo still has a better team, especially once you get to week 13. But maybe I'm wrong.
Currently, with their full lineups in, they're projected within 1 point of each other.
So that's what he based it off of.
Yeah.
It's also, I have a lot of respect for Matt as a human being. So I imagine that he might have looked at the bye weeks. It's very possible that Trujillo has some pretty significant buys.
Yeah. Right now he's starting James White and Jamal Williams at running back, which is not good.
Yeah. But in week 13, that probably won't be the case because I'm pretty sure Chubb and Eckler are supposed to be back by then.
Yeah, but that's not what we're looking at. This is for next week.
Oh, this is next week already.
Yeah.
No, I'm looking at week 13.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so you're talking. Matt Magnuson.
Yeah, this isn't the next matchups yet. I'm just looking through all of his week matchups and maybe ones that I'm curious about or curious to see what you guys think just from outside looking in.
All right, I see. Let me take a look at that because I am not sure either. I would definitely put Trujillo as at least a slight favorite, probably a heavy favorite in that.
Gotcha. One I want to look at too, and maybe this was kind of interesting when I was looking at it, was Adam or Matt also put, I guess I'm not trying to target Matt. He made the list, so I'm trying to put it there. I would have thought that Matt and Adam might have been a push, but for him, he actually has him as a slight favorite. Do you guys agree with that? I know nobody significant is on a bye that week. So it's basically just their teams against each other when we researched it.
I actually do think the Le'Veon Bell news is enough that I would shift Matt's team to a slight favorite, as well as getting Schultz.
Yeah, I can see that. I agree.
Okay. And then the last thing I just want to look at is week 10 for me when I face myself. Do you guys think I'm going to win?
Doubtful. You'd still lose both those games.
That's some dank analysis right there. Matt's team is like, all right, we couldn't find anyone that Cody was even against, so fuck it. I changed the schedule and just had Cody play himself.
I'm still the heavy dog.
You always will be.
So what I actually just wanted to take away from this is kind of where everybody's projected to be. So Sam, you are projected to be 11-1, not quite undefeated.
So that means I beat him? Ooh,
Yep. So you better lost somewhere.
I'm calling Cody beats me.
Oh no, I have to face you. Oh, I'm just kidding. I have to face anybody. So there's Sam there. Then we have Trujillo still getting that, that's all important second round or first round bye. He has Jake winning the division. Even when we look at it here, wow, week 13 against Adam. Maybe there's there must be buys I'm just not looking at, which is kind of tough to look at this without analyzing it fully. But
what do you mean buys? Oh, I see.
Like player buys.
So,
sure. Yeah,
so basically, Matt might be helping to decide what makes the division even closer in my eyes, because based off of strength of schedule, Jake's team actually has a higher percentage chance of winning the division. So
yeah,
it just makes that even more even in my head, because I already had Jake as the third worst team. But if he is getting boosted by luck, which doesn't surprise me for Obi, that's interesting.
Yeah, it'll be close for sure.
Yeah, it's just interesting to look around. Wow, week 10, Mike is a push with Adam. That has to be because of buys, for sure. Interesting.
Yeah, that would be my guess.
Yeah. Sorry, I just like looking at these and seeing what kind of seems crazy off the bat, but things you can kind of just analyze all the same. Any surprise here on what you guys think everybody's going to end at? Anything you're looking at where you're just like, I don't know about that.
I don't know about that. Yeah, I mean, I guess I already said it. Jake finishing 7-5 with Adam and Fowler finishing 6-6. That's some crazy trigonometry right there. But I believe that happening. I guess that's a crazy bad record for all of them when you look at it that way, right? Because if Jake finishes 7-5, that's the best finish on the year. That means that he finishes 3-3. That means both Adam and Fowler, who are in the same division, finish 2-4. That's wild.
Yeah, maybe that's. Go
ahead. I was going to say, you basically have to assume that they split games against each other, right? Because they all have to play each other once more, and then obviously they all have pretty hard schedules. I think everyone plays you, Tom. I know Adam plays me once, and then looks like a couple against Trujillo as well. So those are all probably losses for them.
Probably. My team kind of sucks.
Oh, that's true.
No, that's just Juju.
No, Juju's the best. He's my wide receiver 1 on my team over Tyreek Hill. I'm looking to shop him, not because he's not the best.
Gosh. So comparing these kind of power rankings that we have, let's actually move into our own power rankings and where we put everybody. So as you can see on my screen right here, I'm going to bring up what we looked at last week. So last week, we kind of just left it the same. We had Sam and Matt in their own tier together. And then starting at the second tier, at the number 3 rank, we had Tom, then Jake, then Matt. Next tier into tier 3, we had Adam, Ben, and Laramie. In tier 5, we had Marcus and Eric. And then to round it off in tier 6, we had Mike Reed and me. So let's actually look at the rankings over here. All of us this week put Sam into his own tier. I think it's clear why that is. Guys, anything I'm missing?
Yeah, when your head is so big, it's really hard not to be in a tier of your own.
Yeah, I would cry if I wasn't, so appreciate that, guys.
So I think that's pretty cler. I think Matt Trujillo started kind of stumbling a little bit, But, at the same time, we all have him as the second lead in tier 2. So I think it's fair to put him in that number 2 position right now.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah,
All right, this is
has
where
become
I think we all have the same spot, just different tiers. I actually still had Tom in that second tier with Matt a little bit, just as far as the quality of team, but I get it from a logistic standpoint of Matt will get the bye.
Yeah, it's partially that. I also just think that when Matt's team is healthy, I think that's part of my reason we're in different tiers. I do think it's clear that his team is better. Like I still am looking for I still don't know how Ronald Jones is going to do when Fournette is healthy fully. And at tight end, I'm still I don't have one of the elite tight ends. I have Henry and Hawkinson. And then at my second quarterback, I'm okay, but between Roethlisberger, Dalton, and Cam Newton, it's kind of, I don't know. It's tough to say if any of them are as elite as some of as Trujillo's. So no, I think if we're settling this, if this is even an argument, I don't think I'm in the same tier as Sam and Matt.
Okay. I think the next one's interesting because we all have the same person. The only thing we need to decide on is tier. So the next person making a huge leap forward now that he's leading the division is definitely little Adam Wentz, moving up to the number 4 spot. I included him in the third tier just because I felt that he has a good chance of winning his own division, and he can get him with points, giving him more options than I thought you would have. But what do you guys think? Do you think he is a teardrop?
To me, it's a teardrop just because I still view Tom as a 90%, and I do think there is a very reasonable case where Adam actually doesn't make playoffs. I think he will, but there's a case he doesn't.
It's funny because you're putting him at 4 here, and I actually think he's the 6th best team. At least that's where I ranked him. And there's 2 reasons for that. One, we've defined several times that our power rankings are based off of playoff percentage, and I completely agree with Sam on this one. He has really strict competition in his division, not only with the strength of schedule, as we saw earlier. We just talked about how Adam's most likely to go 2-4, but also because when you're in a division with teams that have high records, you have a lower chance of making the playoffs just by math. So I don't think he's this high, and that's primarily the reason we're talking about, is he in the same tier as me? That's partially why I say no.
Yeah, and I didn't include rest of season schedule in my rankings, so I actually would put him 5th or 6th.
You would?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would drop him down a little bit.
Okay. So
Let's put him at 5 for now.
Put him at 5. I mean, if we're putting him there, then I think we have to put Jacob above him then.
I'd put Matt probably.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
But Matt might not be able to make it based off of just points. I mean, he's only 20 points ahead of Laramie.
Yeah, and
that's the only
true.
way he makes it.
That's not true.
I guess he could make it because of record, but I mean, probably
he
not likely.
He has 2 free wins against you and probably Marcus. And then, I know obviously Trujillo's a big matchup, but his team has been faltering a little bit. So I just think his team is good.
Interesting.
To me, that's what makes tier 4. Or I guess if we're saying, Sam's actually calling it a different tier. He's basically putting me in a tier of its own.
Yeah.
I would say they're all in the same tier with me. So even shitting on my team even more. Man, Sam, you're really generous. But actually, both you and Cody are generous. But yeah, I think they're all in the same tier with me in tier 3. But they're so close now, which is really a testament to Adam's team because we're really firmly jumping him into that same tier with Matt. So
yeah, I think that's fair. I couldn't decide whether I wanted all of you in the same tier or not. So, but
I'll move all 3 of you guys in the same tier then. I think I can more agree with that because I do think it's really close between all 3 of them. So then moving on, then I think right here you have to put Jake O'Brien, unless you guys want to put Ben Fowler.
No, I'd put Jake.
Yep.
So then another tier drop probably, right?
No, I don't think so.
Same tier 3.
I think so. Yeah.
Yep,
I mean, it's basically the same thing as Adam, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. I had a huge tier here just because I thought that it could really go any way.
Yep.
And then from there, we moved to Ben Fowler.
Yeah, and I'd put him in the same tier as well.
Yep. And then Laramie, I'm assuming you move below a tier.
Yeah, so that's the tier break right there.
Yep, I agree. But actually looking at this again, I actually think he's in his own tier. just because he is on the outside looking in, but I don't
Yeah.
think anyone below this really has a chance at playoffs.
I actually agree with that.
It depends on how granular you want to get with tiers, but yeah, I
Sure.
agree.
I
Do you
guess
think
like
because
like
of oh good.
I was gonna say like you were showing or Cody showed earlier, he's only 30 points out of playoff contention right now. So like he's still in it, but hurting.
Yeah.
So do we throw Eric Barber right here at number 9 just because he is 3-3? Like he could possibly get in through record.
So is Marcus though, and they're like literally two or 3 points away from each
Isn't
other.
Marcus 2-4?
Marcus is 2-4. Yep.
Is he? Okay. Yeah, my bad.
That's why I was thinking that.
Yeah, I'd probably put Barber there. I definitely wouldn't put him in the same tier as Laramie though, but I could go either way, I guess.
You'd put both these guys in a different tier, right? In both in tier 5?
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that tier is kind of like literally a miracle to get into playoffs, but not technically out yet.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And then I think it's fair. Do you guys really want to put Mike in a tier with me, or do you think I should be even a tier below him now after these trades?
No, I still think it's the same tier personally.
Thanks, buddy.
But
Appreciate it.
do you guys think differently?
You are not alone. It's hard to say. I mean, Mike's team is clearly better. So is that where we just draw the line? Like Mike actually has, Mike has a,
Say it.
Mike has all startable assets except for Keyshawn Vaughn. So like Cody is starting like Travis Homer.
What's bad about him?
I guess okay, let's look through Mike's team right now. How many players on Mike's starting lineup equal Kittle? Because it's probably like 3. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Cody's Judy, Kirk, and Kittle, and then
That's it.
Locke is okay.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't care either way. To me, it's like neither of you guys have a chance at making playoffs. So I'd probably put them around the same. But yeah, if we're gonna go different tiers, that's fine too.
I'm gonna call it a different tier.
Yeah, that's fair. Cody,
Well, I'm gonna leave it the same tier.
No.
So you're outvoted, sir. So that kind of wraps up our playoff kind of picture now based on our power rankings. We would have Sam going to playoffs and Matt both with buys. We'd have Tom, Matt Magnuson, and then out of Division 3, we have Adam and Jake O'Brien with Ben Fowler being kind of the outlooker in. So that's kind of interesting to look at there. Man, now that even after his trades, we still have Ben Fowler on the outside, not even making playoffs. So if he misses playoffs, does that make the trades not worth it at all?
No, I disagree with. I mean, I know you're just posing the question, but that's not what it's about to me. Like he increased his odds as verifiably as he could with what he had as assets, so that he's giving himself the best shot in the playoffs. And then once you get to the playoffs, it's all like, I mean, I know you guys hate when I say this, but it's rolling weighted dice at that point. So any sort of playoff seed is a playoff seed, and I don't think it's a waste for him at all. Even if he misses it, it's like, that would just really suck for him, but it was still the right move.
Yep, totally. He's got a decent chance at playoffs. And if he didn't make those trades, I think he'd be with Barber and Skonieski. So I think it definitely increased him quite a bit.
Gotcha. Okay, I agree with that. So moving on then, let's actually look forward to our new matchups this week while also looking at how we scored last week. So I don't really want to talk about this. I don't know why I had Fowler winning that or Trio winning that. Fowler won that. So these will actually all be wrong. Sorry, guys. This is so bad. I thought I had that corrected.
Boo, Cody,
I must have been
boo.
tired. I was tired.
I must have been hungry.
I must have been hungry. So I actually want to look at, looking back there, you guys got me on the Adam versus Laramie train. Adam won. He barely won by like 7 points. So that was wrong by me. Good job, guys. So you two are tied for first right now, both with a score of 5 correct matchups predicted. And there's me at third with 4. Sad days. So let's actually move ahead now and look at week 7. The first matchup here, which seems like we're pretty unanimous. We have Sam beating Adam. We pretty much are just going to have Sam beating everybody at this point, right?
Yep.
Yeah, unless I have another big bye week. I haven't looked forward enough yet, but
So I'll just put the winner in here, Sam. Just kidding. I'll do that later, Sam. You might lose.
I might.
The
Yeah.
next one is a little bit divisive, and kind of what we're looking at here is Tom versus Fowler. Now, Tom, we both have you winning, and Sam, maybe you're trying to spite Tom a little bit, but you actually have Fowler winning. Do you want to explain your logic?
Yeah, it's probably like 80% I wanted to take a shot. And then on top of that, I believe you have a couple of bye weeks, right? Specifically, Baltimore is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm taking a shot. I think it'll be interesting, and I think it'll be closer than it would be if Baltimore was playing.
Yeah. All I heard when you were talking there is, my name is Sam, and I'd like to make a dollar bet. Ooh.
No, I'm already betting on it this way.
You bastard.
I don't double down.
Not that I care about projections too much, but I'm currently not starting a kicker, and I'm still supposed to win by 10 points.
And he has his full team in.
No, he doesn't have a
No, I
tight
guess he
end
has
started.
Burton, but Burton's about a kicker, so I guess projected win by 11 points.
Yeah, so pretty close.
Yeah, I think Tom definitely kind of lucks out with the fact that he still has, you have Cam and Big Ben, so you had good backup QBs to take the place of Lamar Jackson
And
not
Andy
really
Dalton.
being there.
Yeah.
Yeah, good QBs like Ben Roethlisberger and Cam Newton. I'm not gonna give Andy Dalton a good QB. Never.
QB2.
Oh,
Low end.
ugh, low,
Rest of season.
low.
Dollar
Oh,
bet?
yes, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I bet you he's a QB3.
Whoa. Oh,
Shit.
Sam, are you taking that with me?
Oh my God.
That is
Can
so
I?
bold.
He looked so bad.
Can
You-
Sam
so-
take it with me?
So Cody, you're saying that he's a bottom 8 starting quarterback, and that's not even counting if other quarterbacks get injured.
He's
Because
a
Andy
bottom
Dalton's
8.
not.
No, wait, can we lock in the dollar bet first?
I'm
And
saying
then-
he's yeah. I think he's below that. I think he actually is that rest of the season. He
All
looked that bad.
Mark in
So-
the dollar bet.
By QB3, you mean not top 24. I
Yes.
just want to clarify
That's
that.
ludicrous to me. When he was playing for the Bengals, he was a QB1 for most of his career. Now he has better weapons. He actually was. It's people are often surprised by that. But there was like at least 4 or 5 years that he was a QB1. 2, he's got way better weapons. Admittedly, the Cowboys' offensive line is not as good as it used to be, but like, man,
And Zach Martin just got hurt, their best offensive lineman.
that's big. But I think it's a huge overreaction to say that he had a bad.
I think they're fully switching. I think this last game will be enough to make them fully switch to going into a full run mode. Even though I know
They
Zeke
tried to go
fumbled
full
twice.
run mode, and then
Yeah,
Zeke Elliott
I know.
fumbled twice.
I think he's going to address the issue. I think he has to address the issue now.
Oof, I just
don't know.
don't see it.
He looked terrible, like awful. And I mean, like, it wasn't like this is
Yeah,
the
but
first
that's
game.
expected. This is
He
first game.
played half a game of the other game too. I mean, like
He also started looking better towards the end of the game.
during garbage time.
Yeah, I agree it's during garbage time, but like, man, I just think that's a huge. Like,
I don't know.
if I were a statistician, I wouldn't be taking a sample size of one game as their first game and saying that he's a bottom 3 or bottom 8 quarterback.
See, I wouldn't if he was just barely missing, but he was clearly missing everything. He looked lost out there, honestly. So that's why I'm going to take it. I think it's a lot for him to just try to learn here really quick in the rest of the season, especially with no training camp, no preseason for him to get practice. To be thrown in, actually, to me, is part of the issue. It generally takes about like 4 or 5 games for a guy to actually finally figure it out.
I want to make like a $5 bet on this because
Nope,
I feel
dollar
so
bet.
strongly.
It's only $1 bet. But okay, well, we'll see there.
Can we highlight that dollar bet?
Yeah.
Like, I feel so strongly about this.
I've truly never been more confident in a bet in my
That's what
entire
I
life.
mean.
We'll see. We'll see.
All right, that'll be a good call. That'd be a good call.
All right. Next, we have Mags versus Laramie. There, I must really be missing something. Is it just the Justin Jefferson buy? Is that why you guys have Laramie?
He has a ton of buys. I believe he can only start one quarterback this week, and he's starting Mooney in his super flex. Let's see. Yeah, so yeah, quarterbacks are the big ones, and then Justin Jefferson as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think I still had him winning just because of the fact that to me, he's still starting Watson, Lindsey, Robinson. You have your big 3 right there between Diggs, Evans, and then Dalton Schultz comes in
Oh.
here.
Jonathan Taylor's on by as well.
Yep. I get that for sure, but I don't know. From looking at it, Bart
It's not bad.
Scott's going
I
to get
think it's close
13.
to 50-50. I just think
Yeah.
Laramie's team's better this week.
I think I just take the upside potential of Matt's team more, and that's why I like it.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, it's also that Laramie has a key Michael Gallup with Andy Dalton throwing to Michael Gallup now. I think he has so much more value.
Oh my God. Fuck you. Let's see how we did last week with Andy Dalton. Oh, we got 4.3 points. Great.
I'm sorry, I'm just still not over it.
Oh my God. I fucking hate Andy Dalton.
I actually
He's
can't
like the
wait for
Adam Gase of quarterbacks.
What are you gonna say, Sam?
I can't wait for Andy Dalton to average like 14 points a game and still be QB 23 because it takes almost nothing to be a QB 2.
God, can you? Okay. So if Andy Dalton's a quarterback 3, does that mean that like Cooper, Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb are all just bad ROS? Like, I just don't believe it. That would be crazy to me. Like, that would just be like, I can't even imagine the headlines. Like end of season, like Cooper, Gallup, and Lamb all suffer miserably because of Dalton. Like that just.
Well, I think the reason, if you actually look at it like from a pure points perspective, is like the reason why you see people in like the QB3 territory is generally just because they were injured part of the thing. I actually think like if you're scoring like 10 points, you are a QB3. Like as long as everybody stays healthy, every quarterback stays healthy in the league.
So you think he's going to score 10 points a game? I'll take the over on that as well.
I think he might score over it a couple games, and I think he might score under it also some games. I think he'll average a little bit more than 10. I still just have him as a QB3.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be a very good call. I'll give you major props for that one if you get it.
God, I hope so. All right, next one. Again, I guess I'm also in the minority here. Is Marcus versus Jake? You guys both have Jake. I actually picked Marcus. I think this was my little upset pick that I had right here. Tom, let's start with you. Why'd you pick Jake?
I picked Jake because I think that his players have a higher floor with a low ceiling. But even though it's a couple points, it was really close. It was actually Daryl. Did I make that note there, Henderson on there?
Yeah,
that's
did.
what I went to. Oh, yep. It was actually Daryl Henderson. I actually think he's underprojected with 13 points. So I think there's at least 5 more points to gain there, which.
They're in Chicago though, right?
Yeah, that actually is worth noting. Yeah.
It's pretty tough.
And AJ Green has potential too. If he is truly like back to being AJ Green. But who knows?
Yeah, I just think Jake has tons of receivers you can start on his bench anyway. I don't know if I'd start AJ Green or not, but
he currently is, which I imagine is who he'll end up starting. But who
yeah,
knows?
he probably will. I just don't know if I would. But
mm-hmm.
Either way, yeah, I think Jake's team top to bottom, every one of his starters are fine starters, which I think is, you can't say that about other teams in this league.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I just picked Marcus just because it felt like a breakout week for him where people could kind of go off. I mean, John Brown against the Jets. It's kind of like some of those number 3 guys that I'm like, okay, could they pop off? Because that can lead to an upset. And I think John Brown could pop off this game against the Jets.
Sure. He's
So
got some
that's where I draw that line.
matchups there too, but it's always good to see your call.
Yeah. All righty. So then we kind of have that all settled away. Next one, again, unanimous. I don't think there's even that much to talk about for these last 2, I would say. Trujillo versus Barber. We all have Trujillo winning. Pretty straightforward.
Yep.
And then the last one between me and Mike, we all have Mike winning. I think that'll also be very straightforward.
Yeah, we have the toilet bowl preview. That'll be great.
Yeah, there we go.
Who's taking the ACT?
Oh, God, I forgot about that. Maybe I'll just make all the trades during the playoffs.
Smart. After the trade deadline.
Exactly. No ACT. Well, at least my roommate has the ACT book already.
True.
So Andy Dalton
oh, God.
he has finished at minimum in his career QB 18. Minimum. Is that surprising to you at all?
I mean, that's not QB1. Like you were like literally jerking him off to
Okay. I said minimum.
I mean, 18
in 2012 he was QB 12. In 2013 he was QB 5.
Yep.
And in 2016 he was QB 12. So that's 3 QB1 finishes.
At the early part of his career.
And this
right?
article is only from like 2011 to 2016. But
I'm looking at Sleeper right now, 15, 12, 4, 18, 18, 16, 18. So all are mid to high QB2 or better.
Yeah, that's
Until
crazy.
2018, he did drop to 24. 2019, he was 24. And this year, obviously, he's done nothing. But so he's never not been at least a QB2.
And now he has the three best the best receiving core in the league, and a very good decently good receiving running backs and a tight end.
Yep, I'm gonna stick with it. I'm still gonna stick with it. I mean, like it's not like he's finished QB 24. Well, you say 24 last year, Sam?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he finished QB 24 last year, and it's not like he had scrubs at wide receiver either. He literally had Tyler Boyd, AJ Green. Those guys are bad.
Did he even start all year last year?
Pretty sure AJ Green was out most of the year, but
Then still have John Ross.
I think John
He's
Ross
pretty
is
bad.
not good.
Yeah, he was not an aspect of the team.
Yeah.
Tyler Higbee, I guess.
Good old Tyler Higbee.
He had T. Higgins, right?
Last year.
Yeah, Tom, you're correct. He played in both of his QB 24 seasons. He played 13 and 11 games, respectively.
I would take the over on that one then.
Yeah.
I'll drop it.
We'll see. We'll see when I win the bet.
So the real question is Andy Dalton or Lamar Jackson rest of season?
Tough to say.
It's close.
Lamar Jackson has no receivers on his team, whereas Dalton has all of them, so it's Dalton.
He can't throw anyway, so.
True. All right. Now on that triggering note, I'm just gonna end the podcast. That was all we had right there for you guys. Anything you want to say to end off the podcast, Tom? Any obscure Andy Dalton stat I should know about?
Yeah, no, I got nothing. There's a lot of good players in the league, and Andy Dalton's one of them.
True. Great final stat. I'm looking forward to Fowler beating Tom. That's going to be a good moment for me.
All right. Sounds good. And with that, everybody, thanks, and we'll see you next time.
It's a football podcast with Tom, Cody, and Sam.